what did government do when it became pretty apparent, didn't need a lot of computers or fiber optic communications to tell that the country was, the economy was going in the toilet? What did we do? Well, first of all, Hoover didn't do much officially, and by that I mean he didn't go to Congress and say we need to spend more money to stimulate the economy or to lower taxes. He did do some stuff. What mostly, Hoover, as I said, he was a Republican, and so his political base was business. They were his friends. That's where he came from. He came from that environment, and so what he did is he went to American business and said, hey, the only way we're going to get out of this is that if you step up production, you need to open your factories again, you need to hire those workers. And so he did arm-twisting, browbeating, you guys need to step up. You're the way that we're going to be able to pull ourselves out of this. He did not believe that the government should step in and actually stimulate demand. Government stimulus. This business thing, the idea that if businesses just opened up their factories, brought the workers back, started making things, even before there was any market for their things, he was actually, Hoover was relying on what was the conventional economic wisdom at that point. That was and you don't need to remember his name and stuff, but the point here was that the belief was that if supply sort of ramped up and production got higher, then people would get hired, they would then have money, and then they would go off and buy things. So the Say's law, in short, says if you get supply going, demand will follow. You see how it works? Get the production going, get the workers in the place, get them being paid. They then will turn around and buy things. So the Say's law thing is that the way to get an economy back on its feet was basically you get the supply side, the production side going, and demand would follow as a result. That was the prevailing economic wisdom, and so his economic advisors, he followed their advice, and business, that's what you. This was reluctant to do that. So he was their president politically and stuff. They all felt pretty gun shy, given all the things that happened over the last. To make things worse, Hoover supported and Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley. This was in 1930. And what this was a protectionist trade bill. The thought behind it was, okay, if we're in such hard times now and there's not enough orders or not enough business for our factories, then we want to make sure that Americans buy American. That Americans buy stuff from American factories so that American factories can see that demand ramp up and the economy will get going again. So what they did is they imposed very high tariffs on foreign-made goods. They said, we want, we're going to pull the drawbridge up over the moat, and now America's going to just help America, and the rest of the world will be damned. We're just going to make sure that our manufacturers have enough business. So they posed very heavy tariffs on goods made overseas. That was the intent to drive, to spur more demand for American-made goods. It backfired, and why it backfired is that all those countries that we had been buying goods from, that had been flowing in, champagne from France and sugar from Brazil or cotton from India, all those places. All those places now faced huge tariffs to bring their goods into the United States, and so that hurt their economies, and so they retaliated. They turned around and retaliated, and they imposed heavy tariffs on goods made in America. So we were trying to just make sure Americans bought American, but what we actually did was, that didn't help much in that regard, and if anything, it made things worse because now goods that we had been making and selling overseas, now there was no market for them because there are big tariffs. There are big tariffs overseas on U.S.-made products. So Smoot-Hawley was another misfire, if you will, in terms of government interaction. Okay, how are we doing so far? Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Has there been an economy like the Roaring '20s before?
Yes. You mean like in the United States?
Yeah, like it's that large and that productive.
Yeah, we actually call it the Great Depression, but it's because it's the biggest one we've had so far, in sort of recent memory. But there were actually at least two other serious recessions or maybe depressions in the 1800s. And both of them, and they were all caused by an asset bubble, just like we had the real estate bubble. Housing values going up and then popping and then imploding. We had the same thing happen in railroad stocks and some other stocks. I think in the late 1800s, we had something similar happen, I think in the 1860s or 70s. So we had gone through it before. And in fact, the one that we had in the late 1800s was recent enough why these guys snuck off to this island in Jekyll Island to design the Federal Reserve System, as they didn't want to have another one of those kinds of late 1890s or whatever that other depression was. So we've had it before. Just for us and our most recent memory, with a century or two, it's the biggest one. But there have been other bad ones as well. Okay, so that's what Hoover did. Basically, hands off. Oh, and the reason for the no government stimulus, what he wanted to do was avoid more government debt. What his advisors told him was that it was inappropriate for the government to spend more money because at the same time tax revenues were going down. If income tax and other things would be going down. There actually wasn't much of an income tax then, I don't think. But nonetheless, tax revenues were going down during this time. And his advisor said, if you go out and do a lot of hiring and got a stimulus, you'll increase the government debt, and that's really bad. And to them, that was worse than watching the economy slide down the drain. Their sets of priorities and stuff was that it was important to avoid government debt, and so it was just another reason why he didn't want to step in and change that.